Actually have a quorum, Dan.
I do. I see that.
You can probably start at any time.
Yep. We have a quorum, Dan. I do. I see that. So we are live streaming and recording. Feel free to start our meeting anytime. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, good morning and welcome, everyone. We are happy to get started with our first meeting of the year and welcome you. So we want to go ahead and jump into, well, first we'll call the meeting to order and we'll jump into board member updates and board related announcements. So please note the United Way All Partners meeting is taking place at the same time as our board meeting today. So some of our board members may be missing. But first we'd like to recognize new and returning ABC board members. From the city of Albuquerque, we have our city councilors, Brooke Basson and Nicole Rogers. Welcome to you both and welcome back. From APS, we have our board members, Crystal Romero Tapia, welcome for the first time, and Janelle Astorga, also welcoming her for the first time. From Bernalillo County, we have Commissioners Stephen Michael Cazada and Eric Olivas, both returning, welcome back. And the new interim deputy county manager, Danette Townsend, in her new role as the representative of the county manager. So as we mentioned, there have been some shifts on the ABC team. Danette Townsend is now the interim deputy county manager for community services. And Deanna Creighton and Jake Mirabal are acting as interim co-directors of the Community Schools Innovation and Strategic Partnerships Department, which includes the ABC Community School Partnership. So congratulations to all of you, and we know we're in good hands. Thank you. They've also added a new member to the ABC team. We're pleased to welcome Silvina Teo, former community school coordinator at Manzano Mesa Elementary School and Van Buren Middle School, as a community school development coach. So welcome. Now, I would like to, as we all know, the big news, we're so excited to welcome our new superintendent, Dr. Gabriela Duran-Blakey. And I would like to see if one of our APS board members, Janelle Astorga, would like to introduce her and talk about this.
Yes, thank you so much. I tried to come on video, but it's showing me a black screen, so I'll just leave my picture on there so you can see my face. Not sure what happened, but thank you for letting me introduce Dr. Gabriela Duran-Blakey. After a long process of searching for a new superintendent, we had really, really great finalists, and we just felt like her dedication to APS over the years and her knowledge of what students and families' concerns were in the district made her a great fit. So we're very honored to have an all-woman team on the board and superintendent level. And I think we're going to do some really great things for our students and families. So hopefully she can join us on one of these meetings and you can meet her yourselves, but we're really excited.
Great, thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of working with her over the past year or so, and I'm excited for her new role. So congratulations to Dr. Blakey. And I would like to see if there are any other board-related announcements this morning.
Hi, everybody. This is Marjorie Krebs at the University of New Mexico, and I just want to remind everyone that we are still accepting our Albuquerque Teacher Residency Partnership applications for students who want to be teacher residents in APS. We're really excited to be interviewing a cohort 7, February 27th. So those applications are due by the 15th. And if you know of anyone who would like to be a teacher, send them my way. And we'd love to talk with them about teaching in APS. So, and one other note, on our website, there was just recently published a national publication featuring New Mexico along with New York and Colorado for their policies in the state supporting teacher residencies. So that's a national report that came out from the National Center for Teacher Residencies. So thanks everybody, as always, for your support. We love placing student teachers in community schools.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to make a board announcement? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our voting items. We do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and approve the agenda, today's agenda, which went out to you in email. If I may have a motion to approve.
This is Counselor Bassan, and I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
This is
Good.
Commissioner Lewis, the second.
Thanks, Misha.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Yes.
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 Thank you. So I believe that was unanimous. I don't see any, are there any who would like to oppose? Okay, thanks. And now we would like to approve the minutes from the December board meeting. If I may have a motion to approve.
This is Commissioner Lee, motion to approve.
Second from Counselor Bassan.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. And all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. So now we will move on to actually, we just did some voting items. So now we'll talk about some new business. The Full Service Community Schools grant was awarded to ABC last year, and it requires a formal memorandum of understanding among the entities who are partnering to carry out the work and deliverables related to the project. The draft MOU was attached to the agenda that went out earlier, and so we'd like to see if there's any discussion needed or questions for Lindsay regarding the MOU. I don't see any, so let's go ahead and I will ask for a motion to approve that MOU.
Exiting Superintendent Scott Uller, I make said motion.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Eric Olivas, second.
Great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
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 Great, thank you all. Okay, so now we will move on to the Joint Powers Agreement, which formed the ABC board back in 2007 and allows for a community member to be appointed to the board. And today, Ellen Bernstein will be introducing for discussion and approval by vote a resolution to appoint a community member to the ABC board. And I believe you all know her. The community member is Barbara Peterson. And if she's present, we would like to invite her to say a few words.
Well, I would be honored to join as a community member. The community schools partnership has been near and dear to me during my time on the APS board, and I stepped down before this past election. Did not run again, but am trying to stay connected to the schools that I've worked with, but also really look at the global impact of community schools, and between what SWIFT is doing at the state level and what this partnership has done over the last 15, 20 years, is remarkable. And, as a teacher, I taught for 35 years in a school without a community school. And over and over and over again, I saw the impact of what it means to children when they don't have access to the services that they need, but also knowing how hard that we've worked to really engage community, but have never, in families, but have never really broken through that barrier of what collaborative leadership really means at a school level and then at the larger district level. And I feel like the essential practices of community schools are really that tool that we can use to fundamentally make a transition for public schools, to really turn them into what they've been trying to be for many, many years. So I would be honored to continue to be a part of this board.
Thank you, Barbara. And now I can see everyone and I can see that Ellen is on. And so let me pass it to you, Ellen, to say a few more words about this appointment.
Oh, thank you. I am proud to be making this motion. I think Barbara has experience, expertise, passion, and commitment. So who could ask for anything more? I don't know if you want to show the resolution, you want me to read the resolution. I thought I would just talk about the resolves. Is that okay?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so therefore be it resolved, the ABC Community School Partnership Board agrees to appoint Barbara Peterson, former ABC board member and former APS board member, to represent the community voice on the ABC board for the following purpose: to enhance community representation and engagement in the decision-making process at the ABC board, and to leverage the expertise and perspectives of the appointed community member in alignment with the goals of the community schools within the ABC network. So therefore, I move that we appoint Barbara Peterson as our community board member.
I would second the motion. This is Commissioner Olivas.
Justine Scott had his hand up.
Oh, I was just gonna offer to second the motion, although I have some concerns about this particular selection. She has a tendency to hang out with some pretty sketchy people, so I don't know.
Okay, well, thank you. So all in favor?
I
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, congratulations, Barbara Peterson. We're happy to welcome you back in this new role. And I also see that our counselor, Nicole Rogers, has hopped on. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness. My Zoom decided to update as soon as I logged on.
It's always at the most opportune moments. Okay, well, thank you both. We're appreciate the appointment and moving forward. So we will move on to community school essentials, our supportive infrastructure. And today we'll be talking about number one, sustainable resources. And our very own Danette will be sharing with us about that.
So welcome, everybody. I do want to extend a very excited and warm welcome to all of our returning board members and our new board members. And also having Barbara join the board, because part of our role in community school development is really built around this dark blue circle that you see on the screen, and it's the supportive infrastructure. And just as a quick review, the way this comes from the Community School Essentials from the Community Schools Forward Task Force, which is a nationwide group of folks who are content experts in community schools who have really researched, they've done lit reviews, they've done some research based on long-standing initiatives, et cetera, to really look at how the community school strategy can improve the way we are delivering educations for students, families, and communities. And that goes beyond the classroom. It's the whole child and whole community approach. And we did have someone from New Mexico on that team. One of the people that was, they're no longer with the public education department at the time they were contributing. So New Mexico did have a voice in this development. So because we do have some newer folks here, I'll do a quick review. So the center is really why we do this work. New Mexico doesn't exactly use this statement, but it really is to improve the conditions for our whole communities, with children at the center, children and families. And then who drives this work is the community partners, youth and families, school staff, and community school coordinators. We have always worked in that way on the ABC board. And, it was a little harsh to hear how long we've actually been in place, because I've been on the board since then and off and on depending on my role, and wow, did time fly. The enabling conditions are the things that allow the work to be done to change the way we're doing business in this approach, which is actionable data, really looking at data from a perspective of it is used to shine a light on what we need to do and where we need to do it. It is not used as a hammer or a way to consequence people. It's really about, are we getting where we need to go? If we're not, let's figure out where we need to go and what we need to do differently. Inclusive decision-making is really the stronghold for the ABC approach, is really that collaborative leadership team where every person who has an interest in the success of students, families, and that community has an actionable role in decision-making from where they sit in their space. Shared vision, meaning we all are going in the same direction at the same time. And then, of course, the foundation of all of that is having trusting relationships across the board in all the different sectors. The next is the key practices. These are what once were the pillars, are now 6 key practices: powerful student and family engagement, collaborative leadership, shared power and voice, expanded and enriched learning opportunities, culture of belonging, safety and care, integrated systems of support, and rigorous community-connected classroom instruction. The culture of belonging, safety and care, and the community-connected classroom instruction are fairly new. They came out of this research. Also, why I think it's wonderful to have Barbara Peterson joining the board, because this is the area in which all community school initiatives across the country are not as strong as they would like to be, and having former teachers with really strong systems level knowledge are really important to moving this key practice forward. We know that culture of safety, care, and belonging has always been something that schools have focused on. This just formalizes it. So the outside ring is what we're talking about now, and this is the supportive infrastructure. This is the role of the ABC board or of any community-wide leadership team in New Mexico. That's what we refer to them as for every county. Many people have different iterations of this across the country, but this is the part where we really look at and focus on building a supportive infrastructure so all these other circles can happen. And a big part of that is sustainable resources. We can't do this work first and foremost without community school coordinators. They are the cornerstone to having a dedicated human being whose role it is to facilitate all of these areas. Their role really isn't to do direct service, not to say they don't jump in and do what they need to do, but their role is to navigate these systems and coordinate them and make sure that all the things that particular school wants to have happen have the ability to do that. So a big part of our work, of course, is my favorite thing, is the sustaining the strategy through braiding and blending of funding. And this is just a quick glance at how we fund community school coordinators within the ABC network. And we have, of course, most of our schools are traditional APS schools, 62, I believe, and then another 15 charter schools, also all but I think 2 are APS charter schools. So the charters primarily are focused on their New Mexico PED grants to use that funding to fund their coordinators. So this is really focused in on the 62 traditional schools within the school district. And these are all of the funding streams that we use to underwrite the coordinator salary. And only the schools that have implementation grants from the state of New Mexico through that grant program have a single source, pretty sure, a single source of funding. And there is a very specific reason for this. As we are building this infrastructure to be sustainable, we don't want a single source of funding unless it's sustainable funding. And right now, there is no sustainable funding for community school coordinator salaries. So we want to braid and blend our various partners who are contributing to this process so that if one funding stream happens to go away, we aren't trying to fill that giant hole for single individuals or single schools. We can look for a smaller portion of money for each place, so we're not losing everything. It's really important in this strategy that happens because often there are soft funding sources that are moving forward. You can see at the top, so we look at the Joint Powers Agreement, which is really the formal governmental agreement, intergovernmental agreement between the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, and Albuquerque Public Schools. We have committed a lot of funds, but I do want to highlight that in the last 6 years, APS has really gone all in on this strategy. All of these funding streams you see to the right, and then the bottom two state money is in there, but APS has to apply. That money has to go to APS. Is really APS looking internally to say, look, we're committed. We want to do this. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to match the city and the county in every way to make sure that we are doing our part to support our staff that we really want to see succeed. So I'm happy to stand for questions around how we're braiding and blending funding. One of the other things just to keep in mind, which isn't here, is all of the entities on the board also are contributing to realigning resources. So whether that's direct service, like the city of Albuquerque with the out of school time funding that is committed to the district, or the county's funding to family stability to help with families who are experiencing homelessness, who are often in community schools or their homeschool is a community school. Those are also service dollars that we don't tend to talk about quite as much in ABC because our primary concern is making sure every school has a coordinator. So anyway, I would be happy to stand for questions if there are any on this topic. Yes, Alan.
So I was just thinking about what's in the state budget right now.
Not enough.
Is it less than last year?
Yes.
And
we do have an update on what's going on at the state level, but we are 1.5 million short to fund the existing schools who have state grants. So that's correct, right, Brian or Deanna? I'm not sure it's on the screen. Sorry.
That is correct.
So if the 8 million that's in the House Bill 2 right now is the only thing that passes, PED is going to have to make some hard choices, and schools that are currently funded across the state with either a planning grant or year 1 or 2 of implementation, there will not be enough money to cover them.
So for us in APS, that will mean trying to assess what they did with their planning grants and their readiness, and how many schools would we end up having to, have you thought about that? I'm just curious.
It's hard. Yes, we would have to assess and figure out the funding. I think we are in a better position, obviously, because of what you just saw on the screen, that we can, fill some gaps, move some things around. What I will say, and again, Brian's going to speak to this in a minute, but we don't know how PED would respond in the way they would do that. We have we have less than 50% of our schools, I believe. I might be wrong about that are state funded. So we might, we could figure it out. We don't know because we don't know what they're going to do. If they just were to reduce the implementation grants, I am not incredibly concerned if they reduce it. If they don't fund entire schools, that does have I have some concern around that, but we just don't know what that's going to look like for Albuquerque in relation to the rest of the state.
Well, Senate Finance could add a little money, and they're meeting at 2 today, in case anybody knows anybody on Senate Finance.
Thank you, Ellen.
That was my political message of the day.
We appreciate it. Any other questions or comments really about it? All right, I'm gonna share my screen again.
Madam Chair, good morning. I was maybe caught in the ethernet of being promoted to a panelist. Warms my heart. I just prompt me if this is my time to present.
Yes, Brian, we would like to welcome you to share an update on House Memorial 44.
And yes, Madam Chair, if we could do a slight adjustment just in the flow and to Ellen's comments to maybe start with the legislative update and then flow into the HM 44 update. All right, so
Go right ahead, thank you.
Thank you so much. And certainly I'll take the time to just provide, just give a warm welcome to all of our returning board members and all of our new board members. So excited for a very productive 2024, and certainly appreciate all the collective efforts as Ellen alluded to in helping us provide these sustainable resources. And know, as Danette illustrated, we must diversify our portfolio for lack of a better term, in reference to sustaining our strategy. So with that, also know that based upon all the expertise that's in the room, I'll provide a general update, and then those of you who are probably more plugged in than I am can add to the perspective of this legislative effort and make it a team approach. And so real quickly, and just kind of reviewing sort of where we've been and where we are, the House, of course, passed the HB2. And so that does provide $8 million for community schools below the line through the grant program. As Danette mentioned, that is short of funding all the current granted schools for next year. So that is a decrease officially from 10 million last year. And based on the SWIFT briefing, the need is somewhere around the $11 to $12 million range in order to sustain the pipeline that we've established. On the other side of the line, in the sense of above the line, is an appropriation of $49 million that is going to flow through the state equalization guarantee. And that is for school districts and charters to have increased discretion within the areas of community schools, but also 4 additional buckets of priorities. So keep in mind that's $49 million to meet teacher mentorship requirements, create an educational plan, provide scientifically based literacy programs, and also provide career technical education programs, in addition to community school framework implementation. So as you all likely know as elected officials, that doesn't seem like a ton of money for all 5 of those buckets. So really trying to see how we work on that below the line increase within the Senate Finance Committee, and hoping that they can provide us with additional funding at 2 p.m. today. So in terms of what's next, really wanting to let you know that what we want to be able to do is really position ourselves on the slide that Danette referenced to ensure that we don't depend on one particular line item. And so I'm really appreciative of the leadership that's here on the board, but really recognize the community school principals and APS leadership for the increase in funding that has been provided from the school budget that really complements the joint powers agreement resources that we have. And so certainly optimistic, but we must fight the good fight. So at this time, Madam Chair, I'll ask for any other members of the board who are plugged in to this effort to maybe add to this update, and then I'll work into HM 44. Some of you have been in Santa Fe. I have not. So if there's anything you can add, feel free. And if not, I can move to HM 44.
Right, and I haven't been up in Santa Fe, but I do want to recognize the ABC board. You saw the SWIFT policy brief up on the screen, or a portion of it, and I believe you received it. I just want to recognize this board for allowing the ABC team and the APS team to engage with our congressionally directed spending award process, that it really created SWIFT along with our statewide partners of Communities in Schools New Mexico and NEA New Mexico. In creating SWIFT, because we now have a collective statewide voice that is independent of our statewide coalition, which it's tied to the public education department. So that is good in a lot of ways, but sometimes it causes some sticky barriers in really advocating strongly if it's, I don't know, if we have to. And so SWIFT is really taking that on. And of course, we have Dr. Angelo Gonzalez is leading that. So if, I just want to say that if this board hadn't said, hey, we trust you guys, go for it. We know this is sort of outside of Bernalillo County boundaries and all of those things, we wouldn't have that organization to really be up there every day, carrying the torch for New Mexico's community schools, and of which, 76 are sitting in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, and we only have, I think it's like 104 or 9 or something like that across the state. So we represent the bulk of that. So it is important, but it also, having SWIFT makes it a lot easier for all of us to do what we are allowed to do in the seats that we sit in, but still have a loud voice in partnership with Ellen through ATF and with Mary Par Sanchez in NEA New Mexico. So we just want you to know that we appreciate the supportive infrastructure that has allowed us to do that.
I can say real quickly too, myself, Josefina Dominguez, and Ronalda Tomorito have been up in Santa Fe. So we've been actively trying to push for that budget to be approved through the Senate floor. And I know behind the scenes, as a board, we're also looking at a way for APS to be able to fill that 11 million, I believe it was, for our community schools. So we're working towards that, and we're still contacting all of our legislators. So hopefully that does some good work.
Thank you.
Eric Olivas here, Commissioner Olivas. I wanted to say, it sounds like, Danette, you were talking about that we do have a statewide lobbying effort on this. I don't think we specifically approved any legislative priorities for the ABC board, and I'm a little leery of going too far down that path, because some of those lists get really long, and I think they just kind of bounce off of legislators and sit on desks. But in this case, if it's a very specific singular ask, it sounds like we do have a lobbying effort working on this. But just to say, in the future, I hope that we make sure that effort is, that we put focus on that every year, and pointing out, particularly to Senate Finance Committee, because it is largely non-Albuquerque legislators, non-Bernalillo County legislators. I think we only have one on there. It's important to point out that not all of those schools are in the Albuquerque area. So those funds are not solely Albuquerque centric, because I know that that's a common refrain that we hear from the Senate Finance Committee, that, they, and I think it's wrong, but nevertheless, they frequently say that Albuquerque gets too much, or Albuquerque can do its own thing. And so I think, just going forward, I hope that we continue to have a strong lobbying effort and a united front, and get that onto our priorities early in the year so that we can lobby for that.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. And in fact, Deanna just had a conversation with Kathy Court yesterday from the county, who is going to put that on her list in perpetuity to just check in and make sure that the county is really aware. And APS has always done an excellent job of including that in their priorities. This year was a little strange, just so everyone knows. We didn't bring it to the board because of some, maybe a lot of confidence internally that there was going to be no pushback on the amount of money that PED was asking for in their budget. And there was, just some back and forth around how much support was needed. And so folks sort of wanted to spend their political capital, like, as you mentioned, Commissioner, their political capital on the things that they really needed to get passed for their communities. So we don't have the majority of the state grants. So that is really good to know that you're hearing, because we can speak with one of our allies is Meredith, Representative Dixon. And we will make sure that we continue to message that the bulk of the dollars, even though the bulk of the schools, don't come to Albuquerque, because we also braid and blend all our own funding that surpasses the PED investment. So thank you for bringing that up. Show my screen room.
Thanks again for the team effort and all of your perspectives and the collective effort on that. And I think before moving on to House Memorial 44, just really seeing the team effort that you all have spearheaded. One big example is really overcoming the ESSER cliff in reference to the funding that we were provided and that we utilized for community schools, that we're very pleased to say, as the cliff is upon us, we were able to meet the challenge of that. And so optimistic about continuing to do the same through this collective effort. So the reason I asked for the legislative update to go first, because that seems like the timely advocacy that we really are digging into right now, and the decisions that are made right now that hopefully are going to set us up for success as it relates to House Memorial 44. So as co-chair, in working in partnership with Deputy Secretary DeBell, myself and a very statewide representative group of really engaged stakeholders have worked last year and to produce an interim report. And so that sets the stage this year to dig further into the work and really continue to move this forward based upon the decisions that are made in this legislative session, and set our sights on the 2025 legislative session for much of this work. So bear with me, returning board members, as I just kind of get everybody on a level ground as it relates to this task force. And so just working through the bullets here, in really getting a sense that the purpose of this is to provide adequacy of current grant funding in reference to the value of a community school coordinator, really get the sense in providing support to what a high quality implementation of the strategy looks like, and really being able to see if we can come up with some key indicators, and of course affect the lack of recurring funding, knowing that we've got this above the line appropriation upon us, but really seeing there's much more to the sustainability of these initiatives moving forward. And again, as I mentioned, really seeing how we can boost and refine the efficacy of the strategy with key indicators for high quality implementation, and hoping that that would lead to a certification program so that schools, based upon those key indicators, can apply for certification of their school for the future, and then really be able to take a continued look of cost and return on investment to ensure that there's impact and outcomes that the strategy is able to illustrate moving forward. And so if you see the briefings from both SWIFT as well as NMPED, we're seeing movement in reference to things ranging from VISTA designations to attendance, chronic absenteeism, and voice. And so this task force this year will hopefully be able to pull a compelling case together so that the next year's 60-day session can really be a stage for continuing to move this strategy even further in the future. So I'll stand for questions on House Memorial 44 Task Force and hope that everybody is in the loop, and will continue to provide updates to the board as we continue to meet as a task force.
Thank you, Brian, for serving as the co-chair of the task force. We appreciate your advocacy on these. Are there any questions or comments for Brian?
Just another comment. This is another one of those things where, you know, the ABC APS team really wants to give credit to the board. All of the things you see in these bullet points are stuff, you know, these are all things that you all supported years ago, where ABC really was able to lay the foundation with our community schools when we were almost the only community schools in the state of New Mexico. And folks have taken those things that we started, like the return on investment study, the code book, those types of things have all rolled into this opportunity, right? There's more to it. More people have contributed. It's certainly a collaborative effort. It isn't about us entirely, but had we not had the support of this board to really push these things forward, there would have been no foundation to build on. And, you know, and I just think that sometimes it's not easy to see what the board's involvement is in really moving the community school strategy forward. And it's huge. It's just not always obvious because a lot of the work happens behind the scenes where the ABC APS teams are, you know, kind of are concerned because we're really banking on rising tides lift all boats. And so our boat is a big boat and we want it to be lifted. So we want to make sure that that is happening. So just again, thank you. The support is so critical to making this, you know, benefit the whole state.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're right on time for our community school bright spots, key practices in action. So this month we will be highlighting 2 key practices of community schools: collaborative leadership, shared power and voice, and powerful student and family engagement. So Deanna, will you please share with us about collaborative leadership?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. This is the first time we've ever done something like this year. So the City of Albuquerque, as you saw, contributes along with every other organization on this board to community school coordinator funding, and they ask us for a mid-year report. And so this year we created a mid-year report for everyone, not just schools that were funded by the City of Albuquerque. And so this is a lot of stuff on your screen, and so we won't go into a lot of detail, but basically the little bar graph that you see going across is the tracking of implementation of the community school strategy as it is outlined in the theory of action. The school you're looking at right here is Apache Elementary School. They are a fairly new community school. They have a brand new community school coordinator, and they just received a state grant that they're working through. And so they are doing really great. You can see it's all green. Everything that's grayed out in those little boxes, we wouldn't have expected them to complete that yet. This will be what we expect now this coming semester. So they're definitely on track. We have a report like this for every single one of the community schools that submitted one, and it's in a folder. If any of you would like to see that, we're happy to share it with you. We will be sharing that with the community school coordinators and principals so that they can see their progress along the expected timeline and goals for community schools. And then we asked them a couple of questions. Danette, you can go ahead to the next slide, around how it was going with implementation, if there are barriers that they are experiencing, what you're seeing here is what we call our scoreboard, and this is in alignment with APS's scoreboards that they are keeping to help track progress with their goals and guardrails this year. So we also have been aligned with that in tracking progress through the community school strategy. So again, green means we're on track, yellow means we're progressing, and then red is not quite completed, and gray is we wouldn't have expected. So you can see this is from December. So this is actually from November's data. So it's a little bit, it's always a little bit lagging. But we use this and we meet with our partners at APS very regularly to discuss what data is showing, how schools are implementing, what barriers might be coming up, and then what we can do to encourage, to provide professional development, one-on-one meetings, onboarding. There's a lot of support provided between the ABC and the APS community school development teams to really help schools progress and move through the theory of action. And this, what's kind of exciting about this is we've sort of reset our schools this year. So kind of everybody is working through that same track, but we are kind of differentiating our support based on their stage of development. So if they're very brand new, the expectations are slightly different than those that have been implementing the community school strategy for the last 9 years. And then we just wanted to bring to your attention one highlight. Next slide. It's from Alameda. Sorry, forgot about that one. This slide is just some of the barriers that are the trends that we saw as schools reported on challenges they're experiencing with progressing through the implementation of the community school strategy. So of course, many of them indicated time, having to learn the strategy, having to build the relationships required to really engage the community in their input and their resources and their assets. We've encountered a couple of administrative or district level barriers, having to really explain to stakeholders what it means to work in a community school and with a community school as a partner, and then just prioritizing the implementation of the strategy over other things that might seem like low-hanging fruit and are really easy, but don't necessarily lead to outcomes in the strategy. What was really great that we saw is the means of overcoming barriers. This really demonstrated to us that the community school coordinators and principals who filled out this report are thinking strategically, they're really thinking collectively, they're bringing their community to the table to work through these barriers. And so their focus is on building capacity, on increasing collaboration, on strengthening those relationships, creating effective buy-in from stakeholders in the community, making sure they're communicating productively and effectively. And many of them, which we were very happy to see, requested additional support from both the ABC and APS support teams. So that's really, they're really thinking well about how they're going to work through the barriers that they encountered in the first semester. Now is the highlight, I think, from Alameda. Yeah. So I may just read this because I know it's hard to read on your tiny screen, but this was so impressive to us, mostly because Alameda is a brand new community school this year. They just started, and the way that they engaged their community, what I liked about this statement is they were surprised at what they learned. So what the coordinator wrote here, his name is Javier, he wrote, through our DOT exercise surveying of families at both our Explora night and our Thanksgiving lunch, we were surprised to discover that families want us to focus on increasing the school's after-school programming as well as community events. This was a helpful realignment because we could have easily spent significant time and energy recruiting supports such as food banks, housing aid, etc. And instead, we can zero in on what would be most helpful to our particular families. Having organized teams around each of these themes, the individuals previously responsible can get some collective community support, and the variety of voices engaged will bring valuable expertise and experience that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. Approximately 2/3 of the families at Alameda participated in that surveying. And so it's an excellent response rate, right? They really worked hard to engage the community. They were very open-ended in asking what the community wanted. They didn't just jump in with, okay, we need a food pantry as a community school. They really took the time to be thoughtful and engaging of their community. And I just love, like I said, that he said, we were surprised. I did not expect that This is what our community wanted. And that is the community school strategy really in a nutshell. It's identifying what the community said they want, what they need, what the resources are, and then bringing all of that together toward a common goal. So that is a great example of collaborative leadership and how community school coordinators work with their principals to identify and work through the strategy. Any questions or comments on that piece before we move into the last part? Our second highlight. Okay, well then I am also very, very happy to share with you. So those of you that have known me for a long time know that Homework Diner is like the thing that I was lucky enough to be part of starting up way, 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 way back when I was a brand new community school coordinator in 2012. And it's based off of the similar ideas that we just shared with you, which is when I started talking to families about what they wanted and needed at my school, what I really learned is that they didn't understand Common Core. They didn't have time to talk to teachers. They were scared and nervous. They were Googling, you know, like, how do I do division in this way? There were grandparents that said that they would try to help their grandchildren and they couldn't explain the way the teachers could. They just didn't know. So I kind of took that to my community school council and we discussed the need for a place where teachers and family members and students could get together and talk and just build relationships and like learn from each other about how to support their students, because we are both on the same page, right? We both care about the student. We want to support the student, but there was never any time. And then I was also a parent at the time, and my 3 children went to that school. And I said, I don't want to have to go and talk to the teacher in the evening and then go home and cook dinner. And so we combined dinner and time to talk to teachers, and it became Homework Diner. At the very end of 2013, we were lucky enough to be connected to NBC National News. Our special reporter was Chelsea Clinton. It was the most stressful 3 days of my entire life. And she came out here to Albuquerque with a huge team of folks from NBC, and they did a story about Homework Diner. And that was in January, 10 years ago. And what's so interesting to me is I came across this post on social media about Faust Elementary School, which is a school in Kentucky, who just had their first Homework Diner almost to the day 10 years after that aired. And so I got really curious about, well, how far has Homework Diner as a community school strategy spread across the country? And so Alex, our wonderful data analyst person, has put together a map, Danette, I think it's on the next slide, of exactly how far Homework Diner has spread. Take a look at that. This is something that started here in Albuquerque in a community school in response to parents and staff members saying, we want to be able to talk authentically to the teachers and staff in our school. And, you know, it started out as a goal of academic engagement and improvement, but really what it became was a place for people to get to know each other and a place for people to build community. And when I surveyed families and asked them why they came, you know what they did not say? We come for food. They said, we come to talk to the teachers. That was the #1 reason. And the #2 reason was we come for the sense of community. And then it was food after that. So we just wanted to share some highlights with you of Homework Diners that are happening in 9 of our schools here at Albuquerque. So if you want to move on, Danette. So the first highlight is from Chaparral Elementary. This one is really adorable. There is a group of 5th graders who walk with a teacher. They created a little walking school bus to Homework Diner every night because their parents work late and they really wanted to hang out with teachers and not be home alone and have a hot meal. And so they come and they not only do they show up every single week, but they also help set up, they help clean up, they help tutor the kindergartners. They're super engaged and involved. And of course, as an excellent community school, they started tracking, have we seen any impact on those students because they're engaged with Homework Diner? And sure enough, these are some of these students had been chronically absent, and now their absences are going down because they're more connected to their community, and because I also think that there's some extra eyeballs on those students. So that's really great news. And Chaparral last week had 110 folks at their Homework Diner, and we have a photo to show you of Chaparral's Homework Diner. I believe the principal also led yoga one week, which is really fun. The next highlight we have for you comes from Via Vista Elementary School. Via Vista took a much more academic bent to their homework diner, and they are really focusing on literacy supports for families happening during homework diner. And so their story, Danette, if you want to go to the next slide, is they had, so they've just started this homework diner is brand new for both Chaparral and Via Vista. So they've just started, and they've identified, this is just one story of a mom with her 2 children and the grandma who attend homework diner regularly. They have an older sibling who's in college who comes and he helps with tutoring and getting engaged when he's able to, but they've been doing read alouds at their homework diners. And so as they've been talking with the families at homework diner about literacy and how they can strengthen literacy at home, they're connecting students to additional tutors at the school through Oasis, other community school partners. They are bringing books and doing reads together. So there's really ways that homework diner has become an intergenerational experience, which is what we wanted, right? We want parents and caregivers to feel confident in their ability to support student learning at home. And literacy is a nice way to do that at homework diner. And then our very last example, Danette, if you want to move on to the next one, comes from Edward Gonzalez. This is delightful. So 2 5th grade teachers read this book, The Little Apple Tree by Nia Peoples, to students and families, and then they led a craft based on a character in the book. And it's called a bottle buddy. And you can see the students and families working on their bottle buddies here. And then Danette, if you go to the next one, I had to include all the photos because they were just so cute. Like, look at this. To me, I just look at these faces and these families and these students and what they're doing with a book character at homework diner. And it just is so exciting to me. This is exactly what community schools should be doing, right? Community schools are really about engaging families in creative ways that lead, and there's multi-purpose. And so we would definitely like to recognize, especially today, the city of Albuquerque for being huge supporters of homework diners since 2016, as far as funding, but also resources and support. And then the other organizations on our board who braid and blend and contribute funding to make this excellent family engagement and academic support program happen in community schools. Thank you so much for letting me share that with you today.
Thank you, Deanna. You're a great spokesperson for Homework Diner. I'm a believer. Thank you so much. So now we will move on to board member and community announcements. I believe community announcements can go into the chat, but let's go ahead and hear this board announcement. Danette, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. We just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that the PED and NMPED grant cycle for the community school funding program has been delayed until early March based on the current numbers in the state budget. So hopefully that's a relief to some of our schools because it had been bumped up to February, which was real early and kind of taken by surprise. So we're hoping that this will help give them a little more time to prepare their proposals and also for us to advocate to ensure the funding is there. I think, let's see, I think that's the only meeting announcement that we have related to the community school piece.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Are there any announcements in the chat, Deanna?
I do not see any announcements in the chat at this time.
Okay, thank you. So our next board meeting will be March 14th at 2024 at the same time and place. So we'll see you then, and we will go ahead and adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.